Welcome to the Deep Dive. We plunge into fascinating stories, pull out the key insights, and basically give you a shortcut to being really well informed.
Glad to be here.
Today, we are embarking on quite a journey into one of J.R.R. Tolkien's most profound, maybe lesser-known epics, the tragic Fall of Númenor.
Right.
And this isn't just, a story about a lost civilization. It's this monumental saga. It captures the absolute height of human potential, but also a devastating collapse, just born from pride and, well, fear.
It's incredibly significant. I mean, for Tolkien himself, this story was absolutely foundational to his whole world, his legendarium.
Really? Foundational?
Oh, yeah. He even called it, and I'm pulling from his letters here, the Atlantis myth, the greatest single contribution of the Second Age.
Wow, Atlantis.
Exactly. And it's just layered with meaning. You've got mortality, power, its corruption, and this enduring shadow of evil, even after you think the main evil is defeated.
Okay, so our mission today, then, is to really unpack this. How did this amazing civilization rise up? How did its own gifts kind of become its undoing? And what lessons does it leave for us? We'll be pulling bits from the Silmarillion, Unfinished Tales, Tolkien's letters, the usual suspects, to give you the full picture.
Sounds good.
So, all right, to understand the fall, we have to start at the beginning. Who were the Númenóreans? Why did they get this incredible gift in the first place?
Okay, so picture the end of the First Age. Massive war, the War of Wrath. Morgoth, the original Dark Lord Sauron's boss, basically is finally defeated.
A huge turning point.
Massive.
Oh.
And the Valar, who are kind of the angelic guardians of the world, they wanted to reward the Edain. These were the men, the humans, who stood with the elves against Morgoth.
Right, the faithful ones.
Exactly, their reward. A brand new homeland, an island, Númenor. It was literally raised from the sea by Olmo, the Vala of water, shaped by Oli, the craftsman Vala.
So, purpose-built paradise.
Pretty much. The Silmarillion puts it beautifully. And a land was made for the Edain, fair and fruitful, and it was set apart from the turmoil of Middle-earth. It was positioned, sort of, between Middle-earth and Valinor, the Undying Lands.
But hidden from Valinor, right? They couldn't just pop over.
Precisely. Veiled. Protected. It wasn't just land, though. They got these incredible gifts, massively long lifespans, way beyond other men.
Yeah, like centuries long.
Centuries, and immense knowledge, friendship with the elves. It was a golden age.
And their first king, Elros, he's important, isn't he?
Yeah.
Ties into later stories.
Hugely important. Son of Arendelle the Mariner, star. And crucially, brother of Elrond.
Elrond. Okay, so that connection, men and elves, it's right there in the royal line.
Exactly. Half-elven heritage, though Elros chose the path of men. His line ruled for over 3,000 years, and Númenor just skyrockets. Most advanced kingdom of men ever. Amazing sailors, architects, incredibly wise.
Sounds perfect. Too perfect.
Well, that's the kicker, isn't it? The gift of long life. It wasn't immortality. And that distinction became, paradoxically, the seed of their downfall. It made them fear death more.
Ah, because they had so much more life to lose.
Precisely. And the Valar laid down one major rule. Do not sail west towards Aman, the Undying Lands. The ban.
Which they saw not as protection, but a restriction.
Eventually, yes. It started as protection, but it became this point of tension, the thing that would ultimately unravel everything.
It was fascinating how a gift can curdle like that. So, okay, the foundation is set, paradise, but with this one forbidden thing and this looming fear of death, how did it start to go wrong? What was the first, hairline crack?
Well, even though Morgoth was defeated, cast out, his influence lingered. Tolkien calls it the shadow of Morgoth, or sometimes Morgoth's ring.
Not a physical thing.
No, not a person. More like a stain, a residue of his malice woven into the world itself. Poisoning thoughts, twisting perspectives, subtly. You find this idea in Morgoth's ring, one of the History of Middle-earth volumes.
That's genuinely chilling. An evil that outlives the evildoer. And this shadow, it starts to work on their spirit.
It does. Slowly, slowly, this envy starts creeping in. They look at the elves immortal, free to go to Valinor, and they start thinking, why not us?
They start seeing the ban is unfair, a denial.
Exactly. Resentment builds. They become obsessed with their own mortality. The Silmarillion captures their defiant question. Why should we not go to Aman and become immortal? What claim have the Eldar?
That sounds like the beginning of the end right there.
It really is this slow rebellion against death, as Tolkien puts it. He wrote in his letters about this being a capital F fall, specifically the fall of the Númenóreans from grace. It's a spiritual crisis.
And you start seeing tangible signs.
Right.
Not just thoughts, but actions.
Oh, definitely. You get kings like Tarsirian, and even more so Tar-Tanemir later on, they start desperately clinging to life. They refuse to give up the scepter, the symbol of kingship, until they're practically forced out by death or, well, becoming completely senile.
Not exactly wise leadership.
Not at all. And other things, too. They stop using Quenya, the High Elven tongue. They stop the ancient practice of going to the Menel Tarma, the holy mountain, to honor Eru Ilúvatar, the one god.
Turning away from their history, their faith, their allies.
It's a clear signpost. They're drifting from their moorings.
So the spirit's weakening, the leadership is getting shaky, they're isolating themselves. The stage is perfectly set for someone really bad to step in.
Exactly. Enter Sauron.
Ah, the main event, in a way.
Yeah.
How does he get involved and just pour gasoline on this smoldering fire?
Okay, so fast forward to the 32nd century, Second Age. Númenor is at its absolute peak of worldly power. The king is Ar-Pharazôn the Golden. He's mighty, arrogant.
Sauron, where is he?
Sauron's back in Middle-earth, building his power, and he audaciously declares himself king of men.
Ooh, that's not going to sit well with Ar-Pharazôn.
Not one bit. Ar-Pharazôn sees this as a direct challenge, so
Yeah.
he gathers this colossal fleet, sails to Middle-earth, and basically tells Sauron to submit.
A real clash of titans. How does Sauron react? Fight.
Here's where Sauron's cunning comes in. He sees Númenor's power, knows he can't win by force, so he humbles himself outwardly. He submits completely.
Just like that. Seems suspicious.
Totally suspicious.
Yeah.
He lets himself be taken as a prisoner back to Númenor, but the Accalibeth, that's the story of the downfall in the Silmarillion, it says he was inwardly filled with hatred, and he lied and spoke fair.
Oh, that's brilliant and terrifying.
He was taken as a friend and was made chief counselor of the king. He walks right into the enemy's fortress, not as a prisoner, but as an advisor. The ultimate Trojan horse.
Wow. So he gets right next to the king.
Right into the heart of power. And from there,
Yeah.
well, the end is nigh. Sauron, remember, he was originally a Maya of Oli the craftsman, same as the Vala who helped shape Númenor. Then he became Morgoth's top lieutenant. He knows power, manipulation, and the hearts of men and elves.
So what does he do? What poison does he whisper?
He plays directly on their biggest fear, death. He tells them death isn't natural. He claims it's a punishment inflicted by the jealous Valar.
Twisting the truth completely.
Utterly. He fans the flames of the resentment against the Valar. He convinces Ar-Pharazôn and many others to abandon worshipping Eru, the true god, and instead build a massive temple.
To who? Not Sauron himself.
No, even worse, to Melkor, Morgoth's original dreadful name. He elevates the first Dark Lord to godhood in their minds.
That is a catastrophic turn.
Yeah.
Building a temple to pure evil on the Blessed Isle.
It gets darker. He introduces human sacrifice, sacrificing the faithful, those who still honored the Valar and Eru on the altar of this temple.
No.
Yes. The Accalibeth gives this chilling line, and men made sacrifice to Melkor that he should release them from death, and the fires of the altar were lit in the darkness of their hearts.
That's the absolute bottom, from wise, gifted people blessed by the gods to sacrificing their own kind to the ultimate evil, hoping for immortality.
It shows just how far they'd fallen. The corruption was total.
So we've seen this long, slow rot, then Sauron comes in and just slams the accelerator.
Yeah.
It all seems to be building toward one final terrible act.
The ultimate act of hubris, yes.
How does this spiraling pride, this desperation fueled by Sauron, lead to the final cataclysm?
While Sauron keeps pushing, he tells Ar-Pharazôn, who's getting old and terrified of dying, that the Valar are weak, that the ban is just a lie to keep men from claiming their rightful immortality in the Undying Lands.
And Ar-Pharazôn buys it.
He's consumed by fear and pride. He makes the decision, defy the ban, sail west to Aman, and take immortality by
force against the Valar.
Yes, he gathers the mightiest fleet the world had ever seen. An unbelievable armada, ships covering the sea.
The sheer arrogance. It's hard to fathom. Sailing on his flagship, Alcarandas, thinking he can just invade heaven, basically.
His heart was completely hardened, no turning back. And as this enormous fleet actually approaches Aman, the Undying Lands, the Valar face a choice.
Fight back.
They can't directly wage war on men. That's against the plan of Eru, the one god.
Yep.
So Manwë, the chief Vala, essentially, steps aside. He lays down his authority over the world and calls directly upon Eru Ilúvatar.
He appeals to the highest power.
Exactly. And the response is instantaneous and utterly catastrophic. A chasm opens in the sea. The entire fleet is swallowed. Gone.
Just like that.
Ar-Pharazôn and the soldiers who actually dared to step onto Aman's shores, they're buried under falling hills, trapped there until the very end of the world. And Númenor itself? The island,
Oh,
torn apart, sunk beneath the waves, utterly destroyed, wiped from the map. Forever.
wow. The description in the Akalabeth is so powerful, isn't it? And the world was changed.
Eru took away the undying lands, and Númenor went down into the abyss. It wasn't just an island sinking, the shape of the world changed.
How so?
The straight path, the sea road that ships could once sail to Valinor was removed. The world was made round. Aman, the undying lands, were taken outside the physical spheres of the world, accessible only to the elves by ships sailing a hidden straight path. Mortals could never reach it again.
A literal reshaping of reality because of their hubris. Unbelievable. So, after that, this unparalleled disaster, was anything left? Any glimmer of hope?
There was, thankfully. Not all Númenóreans had followed Ar-Pharazôn and Sauron. There were still the faithful.
The Elendili.
Yes, the elf friends. They had refused Sauron's corruption, stayed true to Eru and the Valar. Their leader was Elendil the Tall.
A key figure.
Absolutely. He and his sons Isildur and Anarian names you'll definitely know.
Isildur, yeah.
Okay, they saw the storm coming, quite literally. They managed to escape the destruction with 9 ships just ahead of the cataclysm.
What did they manage to save?
Precious things. A sapling of the white tree, Nimloth, which itself was descended from the trees of Valinor. That's hugely symbolic. Also, heirlooms of the kings, ancient lore, the Palantiri, the Seeing Stones, remnants of their former glory and wisdom.
So they carried the legacy even as the homeland was lost. Where did they go?
They were blown eastwards, back to Middle-earth, and there, in exile, they founded new kingdoms. Arnor in the north, Gondor in the south.
The kingdoms we know from Lord of the Rings.
Exactly. They preserved what they could of Númenórean culture, law, knowledge. A new beginning, but built on the ashes of this immense tragedy.
And Sauron, he was on the island when it sank, wasn't he? What happened to him?
Yes. His physical body was destroyed in the cataclysm. He was caught in the temple when the island went down. That was a direct consequence of Eru's intervention.
So good riddance.
Well, not quite. His spirit, his Maya essence, endured. Filled with rage, diminished but still potent, it fled back to Mordor.
And he couldn't take a fair form again, right?
Correct. After that, he could only appear terrible. But the fear he'd planted, especially the fear of death, lingered in the hearts of men for ages. And of course, he still had his anchor.
The One Ring.
The One Ring, still out there, holding much of his native power. So the fall was a blow, but not the end of Sauron. And it left this deep scar. It makes you think of what Elrond says later, doesn't it? Nothing is evil in the beginning. Even Sauron was not so.
Right. Corruption takes time. It happened to Sauron. It happened to the Númenóreans.
Precisely. A profound lesson in itself.
Okay, so beyond the story itself, the consequences, what was Tolkien really getting at? What's the deeper symbolism here? You mentioned Atlantis earlier.
Yeah, and that's not just speculation. Tolkien was very conscious of it. He explicitly modeled Númenor's fall on the Atlantis legend. The Quenya name he gave the story, Atlantis.
So it's almost identical.
It means the downfallen. It directly echoes Atlantis. And Akalabeth, the more common title, also means the downfallen in Adunaic, the Númenórean tongue. It links to Atlantis, but also clearly to the biblical fall of man, losing paradise through disobedience and pride.
He even tried to write a story connecting it more directly, didn't he? The Lost Road.
He did, an abandoned time travel story where modern characters would have visions, inherited memories of the downfall, linking this ancient catastrophe to sort of modern anxieties about lost golden ages, about cataclysm. It suggests this deep archetypal myth resonating through human history.
So what did Tolkien himself say it symbolized for him?
He was quite clear in his letters. He said, let me find the quote. Yes, letter 156. Númenor was, for me, a symbol of the fall of man, his desire for forbidden knowledge, the perversion of power, and the corrupting lie of immortality.
That really nails it down.
It does. It wasn't just politics or magic. It was a moral failure, a spiritual collapse. Born from that fear of death, wanting more than was allotted, rejecting rightful limits, and ultimately rejecting God.
That makes sense. And if we bring it forward, connected to the Third Age, how does this whole Númenórean tragedy echo later? Especially in Gondor, founded by Elendil's people.
Oh, the echoes are strong, very strong. Because even though Gondor and Arnor were founded by the faithful, the descendants still wrestled with the same weaknesses that Númenórean pride could curdle.
So the same pattern, just slower, less dramatic.
Exactly. Gondor especially became proud. Its kings and later its stewards, they also feared death, clung to power. Think about the diminishing line of kings, the stewards ruling for centuries because no rightful king appeared.
Yeah, holding on to power in the king's name but not yielding it.
Right. And think about the tombs in Minas Tirith, the Rath-Dinan, growing more and more magnificent, almost defying death through stone. It's that same disease of will, that same obsession with mortality that poisoned Númenor, just manifesting differently.
And the white tree withering in the court of the fountain.
Another perfect symbol. The life of the kingdom fading, mirroring the decline. Gandalf's words about Denethor, the last ruling steward, really hit home here.
What did he say?
He said, Denethor loved the lore of old and was proud. And when the darkness came, it filled him with fear and despair. That same old Númenórean pride leading not to wisdom, but to fear and despair when faced with the shadow, that fear Sauron planted so long ago, it was still bearing bitter fruit.
Until Aragorn returns.
Exactly. Aragorn breaks the cycle. He represents the return of the true kingship, embodying the original Númenórean virtues, humility, wisdom, courage, faithfulness that were lost in the pride and fall.
It really brings it full circle.
It does. The story of Númenor ends up being this incredibly powerful, cautionary tale. It's about how easily the human heart, even when given incredible gifts, can be corrupted. It warns against wanting total control, especially over life and death. It warns against those false promises that prey on our deepest fears.
And maybe warns against forgetting where the gifts came from in the first place, rejecting limits.
Absolutely. Forgetting the source, rejecting rightful limits. That's key.
But it's not all doom and gloom, is it? Because the faithful did survive.
Crucially, yes. It's not a story without hope. The survival of Elendil and his people, the endurance of the White Tree's line, and ultimately the way Sauron is finally defeated.
Through hobbits, through mercy and humility, not a grand Númenórean-style assault.
Precisely. Not through pride and power, but through the small, the humble, through pity. So while Númenor is this immense tragedy, you can draw profound wisdom from it. About power, about temptation, about hope.
Okay, so that gives us a final thought, maybe, for you listening. Think about those temptations. The desire for more power, more control, even cheating death in our own world. What really stands out to you from this deep dive about the true nature of power and maybe the importance of accepting limits? And perhaps think about that idea of light and dark places, the star of Elendil. Elendil's escape that Tolkien valued so much. When all other lights go out, what might that mean for you? Something to mull over.